Hello, friends. Those voices in your head. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's utter and complete madness. And do we ever inquire into whose are these voices? And what are they doing in my head? And it's so funny because we have accepted them as if that is who we are, or that is where our wisdom comes from. Yeah, I have to chuckle here because there's not much wisdom in it, is there? There's just an ongoing onslaught of fear. So I've talked so much about fear, and that fear basically is the fuel of the matrix. And that's why when you start paying attention to these voices and you realize they're fear inducing, you know, it's the matrix, the false matrix programming you. I have this thing that the more I can expose of the false matrix the way I'm experiencing it, the more others may have an opportunity to see through it also. I'm not trying to convince you that I don't have thoughts because I do. And I'm very, very little interested in most of them. I know there are some conversations, that go on in the background that we barely know, right? We can feel it though. I've talked about that a lot. There's like a whisper, and this is what is driving our behavior and our lack of feeling confident and alive, which is really who and what we are at the core. So I think it was yesterday I listened to a recording of Oracle Girl. I don't know if you're familiar with her. I can put the link in the description. I like to listen to her once in a while. And she called it the auto commentator. The auto commentator. And I was like, it was just so funny because it's such a great word for what's going on, right? It's on autopilot and it's commentating on everything, even itself, maybe especially itself, right? And then it has this conversation going on with itself, and then maybe a third part comes in, and there's all this insanity going on. And what's happening here in us is that we think that's who we are. So I want to just kind of stretch out a little bit so we can, it's so dense, you can't really see it because it's like, oh, this is all there is. But when we create a little space around it, you can see, like, wow, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Why am I so involved in that? And I remember many years ago, I think it was in 2005, I went to India to get initiated to give this energy transmission called Diksha. You may have heard of it in the past, or maybe even now. And I remember that the guru, or the Bhagavan man, he would say, and it was really very clear. He says, "Your thoughts are not your thoughts, and your emotions are not your emotions." And I can't remember the last one was something like, and yourself is not who you are. There is something, of course, that we are, that we need to get in touch with. But that sentence, like your thoughts, the thoughts that are happening in your head, they are not yours. So take that in for a moment, because that is so powerful when you really get that. They're not going to go away, but you're not going to engage and interact with them as much because you realize, like, this is not who I am. So why do I want to engage in this crazy conversation that has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with reality. But I will also say, of course, it feels like it has to do with us because they've been there since we were very little and they've been there all the time. And we have identified with them so that if there is a thought that says, you're not good enough, you want to go back and watch that video, what the really, what's at the core of our beliefs, right? It's that programming that we're not good enough. So when these thoughts come in, what do we do then? All this nonsense. But this has been going on for so long, and you probably know that when something is repeated many times, and depending on your age, it's probably been going on in there, that tape, for many, many years, and at a certain point we don't have the space to see it for what it is because it is so close that we don't question it anymore. We just accept it unconsciously. Everything always comes back to making things conscious. And because I heard that auto commentator word this morning, I thought, oh, so great, so great. And of course, it fits in really well with what I'm sharing here, especially when you see that it's always connected to fear. And fear is the fuel. The matrix needs your fear to stay alive. And what better than these fear conversation that you go like, oh yeah, I've got to think about that. Let me think about that a little more, so you go over it again, the same thoughts, and the next day and the next day, and you just keep engaging. And all it does, of course, is create anxiety, tension, feeling of lack of worth, and we keep engaging. And I would say it is because it's like this. It's so close that there's no space. So we want to create space. And that I'm hoping that I'm helping the process a little bit today. So you can say, okay, what are these thoughts that are going on in my mind right now? And it may even take us a little time to find out what they are because they're just doing it all the time. Non-stop, day and night. And so we can't just keep stopping and find out what is going on here. No, we just chew on it. We just engage in it. We're just interacting and having all these conversations, it's like, oh, I didn't do a good job. Oh, maybe I should do this instead. And God, I don't think they really like me. And then the third comes in, it's like, well, maybe not. So that there's this absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. So now today, I want to just shine a little light on it to help us all at least consider to pause and go, wow, it's all these thoughts. And I know they're there, but how often do we actually stop and go, because then you step out of it, right? You know they're there because you're churning around in them all the time. You just can't get out of it. It's not easy to get out of it, specifically when we have been feeding it for so, so long. So to take a pause, to just take a breath and go like, yeah, what is really going on in my mind? What are these thoughts in my mind? And who do they belong to? Where do they come from? Now I get this little thing coming in my mind or as an intuition. It's like, so the thoughts, they're going to tell you where they came from. And they're going to say, oh, it's because you remember you did this once and your parents did that and you're bad. And it's because this happened. You started believing this about yourself. So you're still engaging with all of that. I have been a Hakomi therapist for many years, and I know there absolutely is a place to work with these beliefs that are all connected to our emotions. We can't bypass it. And I think by now you know I'm not a bypasser. So we need to become aware of them. And sometimes it's helpful to change them, to change these very low energy, unkind thoughts and create something that's more expanded. It's very beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very good thing. It's like we have been totally, a victim of all of this, and now we can start maybe taking a little more of a stand, step deeper into our empowerment or our sovereignty. Say, I don't want to believe that. I want to create a new reality, and there's a lot of amazing teachers out there teaching that. And then we can start changing our outer reality based on what those voices used to tell us. Now we can at least maybe level them up a little bit so they start telling us some better things, or we instruct them, or we say it, whatever, however it works. And that's great because at least it gets us out of that heaviness. Because these thoughts in our heads, they are really not our friends. They want to make you believe so. It's like, well, I want to keep you safe, and I don't want you to do that again. And so it sounds like, it has your best interest at heart. And but it's still a voice. It's just a voice in your head. It's kinder voice. I think that's a lot better. So we can change that harsh voice or that limiting voice into a kinder, more loving voice. That's where self-love comes in. Very powerful phase to go through. And then at some point, and I'm speaking again from my own experience, this also seems like hard work, we have to do this all the time. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I still use that when I need to. It's very helpful. But there's also a part where you just want to really just be who you are and find out, well, who am I without all these crazy thoughts? Because it's really like it's a crazy person in there, right? It's madness. And it is very unkind and undermining and unloving. So we have to question that. That's the first step. And of course, that's where a lot of the deeper work starts happening if we choose to, where we are, because the programming coming in, we're grasping onto it and trying to survive and make it better. So we're holding on to false matrix programming. So now we start taking the reins in our own hands and start feeling more empowered. And then we're going to say, no, I'm whatever. I love myself, or I can do this, just really much more empowering thoughts. Your life will change, of course. You'll start feeling more confident because you're crowding out all that negativity. So if these better, more loving thoughts are helpful, I totally recommend it. Doesn't mean that it's right for everyone, but I think it's a good plan. But then there is a point where that has to go too. If you want to be fully free, if you want to live from your presence, from stillness, where this can all go away and it's not going to run your life anymore. It's going to go away. And then that's when we start feeling into our presence, our I am presence, the sensation and the feeling and the experience when we say, I am, or just I. And we don't want all these thoughts and voices. We don't want them because that's not who we are. So we start going inside, and now we need to really start spending time to be present and still inside so that we can start feeling into who I am or what I am. And that is not something that your mind can help you with. All the mind can do is distract you. But if the thoughts are too negative and too dense and too heavy, believe me, you need to do something to create more space, right? Because when you're so lost in the false matrix, you can't get out of it because there's no way out. This is all there is. But then when you start, like, love yourself more, be present with yourself, honoring, there's an opening. And in that opening, we start being more available for the I am presence that we already are. I have a meditation you can listen to about I am and how to connect with that. It's just a short one. But today, I'm just inviting you to question the thoughts in your head, the auto um, commenting, the auto commenting that just keeps going, never stops. It's like, oh, this, whoa, and it's maddening, right? It's crazy making. So if we can start creating a gap so you can see it for what it is, and the next moment you might be pulled in again, but at least we start creating more and more gaps. And the more we create more gaps, your true light, your true I am presence can start shining through. And that will start softening and maybe crowding out, or the light will just penetrate the darkness so that it just dissolves. But we do need to make that first step where we really realize, like, it's a mad person. It's a mad voice. It's a crazy, crazy person or crazy voice. And I don't want to live like that anymore, right? So then that's when we come to the place like, okay, I'm done. Now what? So we can talk some more about that. There's also a lot of videos about that. That's when we go to the longing. You might check out the playlist about longing, because a lot of those videos about leaving this and coming back here. And then you will let this be your guide. And it's a felt sense. It's a very different way than here, to be guided by this. And it's more like on a felt sense level and energetic level that you will learn the language of. You'll learn how to move with that. So I want to invite you to question the thoughts in your head. They're not yours. Don't take ownership of them. They're not yours. You can just start saying no and not engaging with them if you can. Most of us need to do some work before we're able to do that. And of course, meditation is helpful too, where we simply want to come back here and take time, really take time to drop into who we really are. So that is my wish for you all, including myself, that we all may live from that place of presence and peace inside and not get so lost in those crazy thoughts. All right, my friends, until we meet again.